To our midst, our chief guest this afternoon, Dr. Sarath Amunugama, who is the Minister of Special Assignments, and at this point I would like to invite him to the podium to make his address.
His Excellency, the Ambassador for Japan in Sri Lanka, my distinguished colleague, Honorable Malik Samarvikrama, all other distinguished members of the head table, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here at this meeting, particularly because many years ago, I joined Honorable Lalit Atulathmudali in Tokyo when we first established the chamber, the Japanese Sri Lanka Business Chamber. I think some of the original participants are here with us. Some others are long gone, but I recall very much that historic occasion. Sri Lanka and Japan have always been the best of friends. Unlike many other countries, Sri Lanka has clearly shown that we consider Japan to be our close friend. After the end of the Second World War, a conference was held in San Francisco to decide on the reparations, the damages that were claimed by all the countries that were engaged in the war. Only Sri Lanka, of all those hundreds of countries, only Sri Lanka said, we need no reparations. We are friends of Japan, we are Buddhist countries, and we want to set an example to all the other countries at the San Francisco conference by saying that we don't want one single yen as compensation. Now that is a gesture that successive Japanese governments have remembered. Even today, when we go to Japan, I was there only 2 weeks ago, many distinguished leaders of Japan recall that grand gesture. So we have a very special relationship. There are other reasons also why Japan should be particularly interested in Sri Lanka. You may not believe it when I say that 2/3 of the world's sea traffic goes past the southern part of Sri Lanka. All the ships carrying oil to Japan, not only Japan, but Singapore, the Far East, parts of China, they all go past our Hambantota harbor. So you can imagine what great strategic value Sri Lanka is for Japan. Because Japan is not an oil-producing country. You depend on oil to lubricate your industries. Some time ago you were trying nuclear energy, but that also now, I think there's large public opinion in Japan against nuclear power. So Sri Lanka, with its harbor at Hambantota, which is only a few kilometers away from the biggest sea lane in the world, should be of great interest to you. Another reason is that Japan was one of the earliest investors as well as supporters of Sri Lanka. We were recipients of a large amount of Japanese funding in many of our sectors. I recall particularly in the power and energy sector. Many of the infrastructure, particularly the transmission lines for electricity in Sri Lanka, were all done at the beginning by Japanese companies. Then the early road works. The Parliament of Sri Lanka, the hospital in Kotte, and many other large projects, including the development of the Colombo Harbour, were all done with Japanese assistance. So not only politically, but in an economic sense, Japan and Sri Lanka have cooperated with each other. We meet today at a very propitious time because Sri Lanka has now embarked on a new growth strategy and Japan has embarked on a process of much wider investment and engagement in other countries. Only after the G7 meeting, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe made a statement that Japan will not double, not triple, but increase by, I don't know whether to call it quadruple or whatever, by some adjective, the amount of funding that will become available for investment abroad. So this is a very good time. And you have come when we are able to unveil some of the new projects that we are about to embark on. As my distinguished colleague, Honorable Malik Samaravikrama described to you, we have two major development areas. One will be the port city in Colombo, where 380 hectares will be created out of what is now sea, and a financial and an industrial hub will come up in that port city. So that should change not only the topography of Sri Lanka, but also the economy and the large investment climate, because so many opportunities will come. The second one is the developments in Hambantota, where the new port, the new airport, and already some of the big hotels have opened, and we have to now fill in the blanks by getting that area with all these assets off the ground and as one of the major areas, major locations of investment in Sri Lanka. I don't have to explain to you the Shenzhen example. That is, you locate your industries on a large scale close to a harbor. In Sri Lanka, in addition to the harbor, we also have an airport. So we have both the harbor and the air connectivity, which will make Hambantota, of which we have already allocated 1,000 acres, 1,000 acres for manufacturing industries. You know that we are entering a new age of manufacturing. There's a shift from the old manufacturing centers, which depended almost exclusively on cheap labor. That has gone on for 3 decades and has been the basis of global growth. But after 3 decades, after the experiences of the global downturn, everybody is looking at their domestic industrial output, domestic employment situation, and we have, for example, the rise of Mr. Trump in America, which shows that they are rethinking the free trade policies. There will be protectionism in the West, though it may not be called protectionism. So there's opportunities for those industries that can cut costs, can take advantage of its strategic locations, and also its natural advantages. So these are some things which are available in Sri Lanka. We look forward to Japanese investment in Sri Lanka. We are midpoint between the Middle East and the Far East. And also just 20 kilometers to the north of Sri Lanka is one of the largest markets and the growing markets of the world, that is the great Indian market. And even in the Indian market, it is the southern states, 3 states of Madras or Chennai, of Bangalore and Andhra Pradesh, which are the leaders of Indian growth miracle. So we have access just 20 kilometers away, not just to India, but the most productive and the most fast-growing areas of India. Then look at the south. South of Sri Lanka, all the way to the South Pole, there is no land mass. I need not explain to you the problems that are now growing in the South China Sea. I think Japan is also involved. Japan, Philippines, Vietnam, China, they're all claiming islands. But in Sri Lanka, south of Sri Lanka, there are no contentious islands. Of course, we are going to build a new island of Colombo, but that may not be so contentious, we hope. But south of Sri Lanka, there's absolutely no problem, and we have to develop our blue economy. Sometimes government may not be happy if I use the term blue economy, but I'm referring only to the sea. So we have to develop the sea. There are large potential in the sea. And in the east coast of Sri Lanka, we have not yet done a full survey of the mineral resources. Japan has helped us during the last 3 decades to develop some of those resources in the east coast. I think it would be true to say that even the basic industries that grow out of local minerals have been sponsored by Japan. But now we can go to a higher level because the eastern province, which is where you have most of these mineral resources, was involved in the war. But now 6 years have lapsed. Now we can really develop mineral resources in the eastern province, and I know that is one area where Japanese investors will be very happy. It is a pioneer area. People have to do the basic excavation, the basic research, but I'm sure it will be a very fruitful one. So geostrategically we are linked. We are in the hub of future developments. Of course, that is the potential. That potential has to be nurtured so that we can face realities. There is competition, but we need the assistance of Japan to proceed with developing our country. Now, one question arises, we have to be very frank, which we discussed in Tokyo also, the question of speed and quality. Today, one of the problems is that everybody agrees that Japanese quality is very good. Nobody can argue about that. The projects that you undertake, the projects that are carried out by your companies are all finished as top quality investments. Any government will be happy to collaborate with a Japanese partner because we know that the end quality will be first class. But we do have a problem of speed. There are other countries, other donors who are much faster than you. I'm not entering a controversial area. This is a matter that is being discussed all the time among aid agencies related to Japan. You have top quality, but do you come out with the same speed? And one of the topics that we will have to discuss in this seminar is to how to get off the block very fast, because there are other athletes also waiting to get off the block. So this is some area which is causing some concern, which we have to frankly discuss. The lead time for projects, when there are other competitors who can cut short that lead time, is a matter that we should discuss. But we know that Japan can look at these matters in a very detached way, very sophisticated way, and it's not a problem that only Sri Lanka faces. It is faced by most countries which have Japanese aid and Japanese assistance. But I can tell you, as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, I mean, the problem of speed is not only the problem of the investor, it's also the problem of the receiver. We also have to streamline our investment apparatus so that not only will the investor speed up his decision making, but the Sri Lankan side also will be ramped up to act fast and to get that project off the ground. So these are live issues. I believe most of the investors who have come to Sri Lanka are quite satisfied with the type of workforce that we have. For example, we have some Japanese companies in the BOI, in your Birgama and other areas. They have always told us that Sri Lankan labor is the best labor in South Asia, and maybe even including Indonesia, Thailand, and other countries. Only country, I've seen some Japanese studies, where Sri Lanka is the only country where the middle management can be developed locally. Otherwise, you have to bring your workers from Japan to read the manuals, to learn the language, to get that factory going. But factory owners in Sri Lanka have told us, have told the BOI, that in Sri Lanka, our workers, largely due to the large investment in education and health that Sri Lanka has made, are very good middle managers. They can learn the language fast, and they can read the manuals, look at the operational organizations, and be a very attractive labor force. So that's an aspect also that you have to consider. Earlier people said that, well, there's much cheaper labor, maybe in China, maybe in Thailand, maybe in Indonesia. These are the countries with whom we were compared. But those salaries have gone up. Cost of labor in all those countries have gone up very fast. And Sri Lanka is now very competitive. Consider the fact that they have all those other linguistic and other adaptation skills which you are looking forward to in the workforce, because that is an area where there will be competition. We are entering into an age of great competition. So look at Sri Lanka, because we can tell you that we are competitive. And if there are impediments, we have a government that is quite ready to look at them and to adjust so that we can get on fast to a growth path. So that is all I have to say, but may I say personally how glad we are to have our Japanese friends here. You are most welcome. And on behalf of the President of Sri Lanka, he asked me to tell you that he's very happy that you are here. He was in Japan just a few weeks ago with Malik, and he has asked me to tell you specifically that you are most welcome in Sri Lanka. You are our guests and friends, and we hope that you will have a long and fruitful relationship between Japan, between your country, between your companies and Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.